So, thanks so much. Probably you're not sleeping yet. If you need any coffee, there is still. I just tried. It's pretty fine. Um, anyway, I think we discussed also last year in December here in the DC about the situation in Ukraine. As we know it very well, the war is still ongoing. Maybe there is a maybe bigger hope now that in the near future, at least in next year, there will be some kind of peace negotiations if it's going well. But as we know it from the President Trump, as he promised to finish the war in 24 hours, we are very looking for that. But sometimes when we are looking, of course, at the war in Europe, I'm in the European Parliament from Estonia, and Russia is not very far away. We are looking also about the actions what the United States will do. And of course, when I'm hearing sometimes some arguments during the war that why we should support Ukraine or why we shouldn't support Ukraine, then maybe sometimes there are some misunderstandings. The number one, what we have heard a lot, what I've heard a lot, is that Russia is not a global threat. It's a regional threat. And that's true. Russia has no power to have any kind of military actions in Southern America, not even like in Africa. Now they're getting pitted out from Syria. But regionally, of course, they have power. And US have seen a major threat, especially by China. And that's right. If you look on the economy, if you look on the population, if you look on the progress, what China has done, of course, China is the major threat. But what we are really missing is the fact that there is an alliance between some countries. Russia wouldn't be even a regional threat if there wouldn't be any kind of support by China. Now there is a support by North Korea. North Korean soldiers are dying in Ukraine. We're not missing them. But there is a clear support by those countries, also by Iran. If we're talking about Israel-Palestine, this is also the part of the conflict because Hamas is supported by Moscow. The leaders of Hamas are traveling after every few months to Moscow to get some kind of guidelines how to kill Jews in Israel. So they are all connected. So when we're looking on the threat by Russia, this is not only a regional problem, this is a global problem. And when I've also been following the political debates in the US, and when there are questions that, okay, why should American taxpayers actually pay for the support in Ukraine, and actually Europeans should do it, and actually I agree. I couldn't agree more that Germany and France haven't done enough. The support has been always too late and too less. But the problem for America is now that to be and to stay as a global leader, economically, also in defense politics, to stay against China, there is a very huge challenge to support Ukraine. Yes, of course, we are already informed that there are also problems in Ukraine. When we're looking at the statistics, when you're looking at problems like in the Ukrainian society, after almost 3 years of the war, the society is getting tired. They're bleeding out of men. They have no human resources. So, and this is the result of the, I would say correctly, that we've been slow, which has been slow. And the outcome now is that Ukrainians are getting into trouble, especially before the winter. But there is a huge necessary to support Ukraine because of the American interests. If the US really wants to keep their position in the global world, there is a very huge importance that Russia will not have those territories of Ukraine, because if you look on the map, the eastern Ukraine seems very far away and pretty pointless maybe for somebody, but it is full of energy, full of mines, full of resources. And historically, it's not maybe a surprise for you, historically Russia has been always empire only with the territories of Ukraine. If Ukraine is gone from the Russian Empire, there is no empire. So this is one of the first things what we have to understand why Russia needs Ukraine. and why we have to avoid that. Because if those territories will be gone just for some peace, it's always good like to remember history like from 1939 and 38 when the Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Chamberlain, were very proud that he had some peace deal with Hitler. And this peace lasted only for 2 years, less than 2 years. This is the same thing now what we have with Russia. Because there shouldn't be like any kind of huge surprise. What is the goal? What are the ambitions for Russia? We know it. It has been declared very publicly. It was declared already actually 2 months before the war in December 2021, where Russia had 3 points, what they were asking from the Washington and from NATO. There were 3 things. No new NATO member states. So we should say also to Finland that no, you can't apply membership in NATO because Moscow and Washington doesn't want to see you in the NATO. The second thing, all the new member states in NATO have to avoid any kind of trainings, any kind of military exercises, and they have to ask permission from Moscow to have military exercises, for example, in Poland or in Estonia or in Finland. So you have to ask from your enemy, from your threat, that, hey guys, can we have some practice here? Because maybe you're the risk for us. Looks good. And the third one was that there shouldn't be any kind of military bases of NATO in those new member states who joined after 2004. So generally, the main goal and ambition is how to restore the impact and the influence zone of the Russia all over the Europe. And if this will happen, the problem is that the US will be no longer the main leader of the world. Then it's gone. Because if Russia is strong, it's a strong partner for China. If China is even stronger, Taiwan is gone. Game over. So those small pieces are part of the huge global problem what we have. And we are just running out of time. Because now the Russian economy is working 24/7 in the war zone economy. They are preparing more war machines than all the NATO member states together in 24/7. So we have to really understand the situation where we are, and even if there will be some kind of peace agreements, hopefully in the near future, it doesn't mean that the peace will last forever. Maybe it will last only for 2 years or 3 years. So we have to understand what they are doing, what are the ambitions, and how can we react. Anyway, you're waking up. Very good. If you have any questions, then go ahead. And if not, then let's prepare for a war, because as Trump said, we have to guarantee to have a peace through strength. Thanks a lot.
Do we have any questions?
Very good.
Yes.
Oh.
Hello, I'm Yulia Klimenko. I'm from Ukraine. I'm a member of parliament. And my brief questions, how do you see how we can actually leverage Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran? Because this is one big chunk. So this is an authoritarian club who are fighting for not only in Ukraine. So they are, and they will push further. So if it will be a discussion, so any actions on concession of Ukrainian territories, they just will go to you. Baltic countries, Poland, and others. So I do not believe they will stop on Ukraine. And any concessions will not do the... the concessions will be a favor for China, I would say. Briefly, how do you see how we can split these tyrants and how we can tackle together?
The first thing what I really liked was the message that Donald Trump had a phone call with Vladimir Putin directly after the victory. But the Kremlin press state secretary, they denied. No, we didn't have a conversation. So probably they had, of course, but it wasn't very lovely for Russians. And what we had between 2016 to 2020 with Trump, we really don't know 100% is it true or not, but the message was that Trump said to Russians, once you touch the territory of NATO, we're going to bomb down Moscow. And you never know, is he right or not? Will he redo it or not? But it's just like the perfect blackmailing. But what happened with Joe Biden, unfortunately? Everybody knew that US will not go to the war against Russia because of Ukraine. What they did in 2014 when the Crimea was occupied and Obama was the president, vice president was Biden, they just cut military aid 2015. And it was restored by Trump 2017. So this was the peace policy through strength. So what we have to do now, the problem is that most probably in the next 2-3 months, it will be impossible to get back all territories of Ukraine. This is just the reality. Because Ukraine doesn't have a manpower anymore as much as you need. So the main question is now how to have this peace at least for 2-3 years, how to restore the economy of Ukraine, how to build up the defense capacity, and how to prepare for the next problems what Russians will cause, and they will probably. And what the NATO member states have to do, we have still about half of the NATO member states doesn't pay at least 2% of GDP to the defense. And that's also one of the problems with the Europeans. European countries are still expecting that the Americans have to pay. And that's the problem. So finally, there has to be like fair share. Like, we have to worry the most about our own security. For example, now the leader of the expenses and spendings are Poland. They're paying 4.3% of the GDP. In about 10 years, they will have a stronger army than Germany. So there is no historical concern anymore that maybe the tanks from Berlin will go to Warsaw. Maybe it will be opposite. Hopefully not. Joke, don't quote me. But for reality is that the Poland will be one of the strongest in Europe. Finland is a very strong ally, and we are very happy for the fact that they are now in NATO. So how to prepare for the Russia and China threat? The first thing, how to have peace now in the best terms for Ukraine. So it means there has to be security guarantees. There has to be the way that maybe at least most of the territories of Ukraine will be part of NATO. And also the NATO member states have to pay, have to invest more and on the faster way. And then we can have some kind of idea of the power balance, because finally we need a power balance in the world. That China knows that there is no point to threaten Taiwan, because otherwise it will be too damaging for them, and for the Russians same. So finally we need a balance.
Okay, question here.
You have to.
Hi, Tomáš Valášek, Member of Parliament, Slovakia. Thank you, Jaak. Like many of us from Europe, you presumably will have had conversations with people close to or in the incoming administration here. And we hear a lot of great things. The desire to restore America's strength, respect, prestige, the desire to rebuild the military power. And at the same time, we hear a vision of a settlement in Ukraine that's pretty different from what you just described. My question to you is, can those two issues go hand in hand? Can you have an America that is respected by Beijing, respected by the other power centers, while at the same time it agrees to a peace in Ukraine that's less than honorable, that is perhaps closer to Moscow's terms than to our terms? Would that not undermine the desire by the very people here to want to rebuild again America to a position of respect and influence? Isn't that kind of what they hold against the previous camp, that they haven't acted tough enough?
Generally, like what we have in Ukraine is a war between the civilizations. And sometimes when we hear also like in the US, when you look in the media, we hear some kind of arguments that, but the Ukrainians, they've been part of Russia for all the history, and they're like brothers, and like it's like the same nation and the same language, so almost same, but it's not true. That's the typical like false information and fake news by the Russians. So we are just committing like the Russians' information that, oh, it's Ukraine, it's just a part of their Russia. No, it's not the same. Directly after the war started, I had a conversation with some French guys in the European Parliament. And they were like, yeah, but we are not ready to have a huge war with Russia only because of Ukraine, because they were established in 1991. It's a new country. It's not really clear, what's going on there. And they have nukes, and, it's a huge risk. And I said, I think like historically, some of the French territories belong to Germany, right? And maybe if the Germans will ask some territories to get back, I think we are not ready to go to war against Germany because of those territories there. There's a small piece of land, and 2,000 kilometers away, and why did you see it's no, it's not the same case. I say it is the same case, exactly the same case, because it's always easy to have some kind of deals with Russians if you are just playing some other country's territories. It's the same thing like if you talk with the Americans, yeah, but Alaska, historically, well, are we ready to go to war against Russia because of Alaska? So it's the same argument. Like finally, it's easy to trade the territories of other countries. But generally, so now this is the war between civilizations. And Ukraine doesn't want to belong to the Russian civilization. They want to belong to a normalized civilization where the member states are applying to be part of NATO. And the opposite side is that nobody's asking you. You have to be part of this regime. So this is the very simple thing now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Anyway.
Great job.